Hello, welcome back to Soul Search Sunday with Johnny Tiger on December 5th, 2021. I wonder how many of you watching this self-identify as a geek or a nerd. I have been called both in various combinations and usually aimed to hurt my feeling, but I freely admit uh, I am definitely a geek. I love comic books. I love cartoons. I love superheroes. I love action figures. I know a lot of the ins and outs of the backgrounds of various characters, and I love movies involving those characters. So yeah, I have no problem being called a geek. Calling me a geek doesn't hurt my feeling. Uh, Rather proud of being a geek, actually. You know what? Because most people that call me a geek, I just have to remind myself, you know what, this geek can really kick your butt if you piss me off. So it doesn't really bother me when they call me geek. Now, a couple of days ago, a geeky part of me surfaced, and I asked Kitten, my beautiful, intelligent girlfriend, did she know anything about Dungeons and Dragons? And when she said she didn't, I took this chance, of course, to go into this explanation on how it is a bunch of guys and girls sitting around the table with drinks and snacks and action figures, and they act out a story. Uh, and everything in the story is determined by rolling a die. So how far the character can move and how fast can they attack and how uh, can they uh, block the attack of another character. It's all determined by rolling a die. Uh, I talked about the camaraderie and social aspect of Dungeons and Dragons and tabletop gaming, role playing in general. While I was talking about this, there's a part of me that was aching. There was a part of me that, for the most part, is locked away that started to hurt. Because this, talking about Dungeons and Dragons, reminded me of one of my best friend, one of my childhood best friend that I've lost. For the longest time, when I was a teenager, my best friend, my confidant, my left hand, right hand man, my sidekick, uh, my wingman, my working functioning eyes, uh, was none other than my younger brother Peter. Now Peter and I did not share the same mother. We're from different mother, and but we are from the same father. So I guess you can say he's like a half brother, step brother. Peter, 2 years younger than me, is born in 1983 on June 9th. He's a Gemini. If I want to talk about Peter and how him and I became best of friends and closest of brothers, I have to go way back to the first 2 years I spent in Canada. Those of you who watched my Night Strike short documentary, you know that I spent the first 2 years in Canada being tormented, abused by my stepmother, aka Peter's mom. Uh, those of you who don't know what I'm talking about, feel free to head over to johnnytiger.com and take a look at the short documentary over there. If it doesn't work from there, you can also find it here on YouTube. Just look for CBC Night Strike short documentary. Now, while my stepmother was tormenting me she wasn't alone. She tried to set all her children against me to get them to help torment me whenever they got a chance. My brother, my older brother David, who was 1 year older than me, my older brother Ellis, who was 3 years older than me, they definitely took part. Maybe not with glee, but they definitely never objected to help torment me. Now, I do not hold any grudge against them. I hold grudges against my stepmother, but I do not hold grudges against my brother and sister, because after all, they were children themselves. So they didn't really have a good grasp on right and wrong, on morality and all that stuff. All they knew was if they helped their mom, they would get more allowance, they'd get more toys, they'd get more perks. So why not? After all, I wasn't uh, I wasn't from the same mother. My story, or rather Peter's story, let's say Peter's story, start on this day in the morning. Uh, I was 9 years old. Peter was 7, and we were getting ready for school, brushing our teeth and getting ready in the bathroom. Suddenly, my stepmother slammed the door. Uh, she didn't know that her own son, she didn't know that Peter was in there with me. I think she just walked past the bathroom and saw me there and decided to slam the door. What happened next was my stepmother and my older brother David would take turns waiting outside that door. And every time I even touched the doorknob, they would very quickly and viciously slam that door open, uh, trying to hit me with the door. And then they would slam it shut again, waiting for me to come near. As soon as I touched the doorknob, they would slam that door open again. This repeated several times, 3 or 4 times, 5 times. I didn't know what to do. I was 9 years old. I mean, if it happened to me now, it would be a totally different story. But back then, I didn't know what to do, and there's a part of me I was going like, oh, confused. Like, come on, guys, this is not funny. I need to get to school. Like, what the heck are you guys doing? This is really dangerous. You almost hit me in the face. Come on, cut it out. Uh, Next thing I knew, Peter, keep in mind he's 7 years old, stepped past me, walked directly in front of that door, put his hand on the doorknob and turned it. Like I said, uh, his mom didn't know that Peter was in the bathroom with me. So as soon as that doorknob turned, those of them that were on the outside slammed that door in super hard, smashed the door right into Peter's face, blood everywhere. Peter started crying, and that got us out of that bathroom because as soon as there's blood and he started crying, and they said, "Oh no no no, oh no oh no, Peter's in there. Why did you do that? Why didn't you tell me Peter's in there?" Well, I didn't know. Uh, that took their attention off of the little fun and game that they were doing, and we were able to move on with our day. Later, later that night, I asked Peter, I said, "Why did you do that? You saw what they did. You saw that every time you touched the doorknob, they were going to slam that door open. Well, why did you do that? Why did you put yourself in that position?" Peter, again, 7 year old, said to me, "Because what they were doing was wrong. That's why." I think Thinking back, that was when Peter and I became very close. When I took him into my confidence, and we remained being best of friends through almost my entire teenage year. Peter and I spent a lot of time at home on our own, entertaining ourselves, because most of the time when we were a teenager, my parents were either out working or out gambling or out doing this or that. My sister Alice busy out on dates or going parties. Older brother David was always busy out finding something illegal to do. That left me and Peter uh, spending time on our own. And we came up with some very creative ways of entertaining ourselves. One of the most elaborate games that we played all through our teenage years, whenever we had time to be together, was we would brainstorm a story, uh, or the beginning of a story, and we would pick from my massive action figure collection who's going to be the hero, who's going to be the villain, and who's going to be sidekick, and this is this and that, and then we would make up this detailed map of the house. The bed is this mountain. Past the bed is the ocean. Across from the ocean, across the floor to the other side of the room. That couch over there, that's the evil kingdom. Okay, we would have all this laid out on on paper, and, and then we would proceed to act out the story and determine every step of the way by rolling a die or by drawing from a deck of cards. You guessed it, Peter and I invented Dungeons and Dragons without even ever having heard of Dungeons and Dragons. We honestly we thought we invented something new. We didn't know that people were doing this for ever since 1980s. Uh, we really thought we came up with something new. But our stories would be so elaborate that sometimes at the end of the night we would put things away, put the action figure back on the shelf, and we would have to take notes. Okay, the heroes got to Devil Island, and then they were looking for this treasure, but they just went the wrong way. So tomorrow we have, and when we start, we have to roll a die to determine do they uh, go further or do they realize their mistake. We have to write all that down. Honestly, I often think that if we kept our notes, if we clean those up, we have several original novels worth of good stuff there just out of our teenage imagination. There's a lot more I can say about Peter. He's the one that taught me how to play video game. Uh, he decided that it was boring to play on his own, so he taught me how to play Street Fighter, Mortal Kombat, so on and so on. Uh, he read comic books to me. Uh, he decided that reading comics on his own was boring and he had no one to talk to about the comic he was reading. So he decided to read them to me, describe to me all the characters from hairstyle to clothes to their shoes to their movements and how tall, how short they were, etc., etc. Uh, and he would describe things to me when we watch movies and cartoons. That's how I was able to get into geek culture, pop culture. Peter, a big hand in that. When we went out, Peter was my guide. He would guide me to school, from school, go out to lunch, or when we went shopping, he would help me find action figures that he knew I would like. He would help me with picking out shirts and pants that he believed I look good in, etc., etc. Now, I don't want you guys to go away from this video thinking that, oh, this is one super brother that so selfless, and he did all this for his blind brother, and here's poor blind brother that just took. It wasn't like this. Peter had a lot of good in his heart, but he very rarely did things without a self-centered motive. I'm not saying this to be say something bad about him. I'm just trying to get you guys to understand that this wasn't uh, touching, heartwarming, brotherly love that you guys might be thinking of. For example, from a very early age, Peter realized that my mother, rather than his mother, had the control of the finance in the family. So if he hung close to me, then he would share in the toys and video games that my mom would get me. Furthermore, Peter knew that I, being blind, had a lot of perks. I could get away with a lot of things. Uh, for example, if he was late going to school, all he has to do was say he had to guide his blind brother. That's why he had to walk slower. Then he could get away with it. Uh, he knew early on, even as a child, that I drew a lot of good people to me. A lot of teachers, family members, friends flock around me. So for him to hang around me, he shared in a lot of that perks as well. Later, when we were a teenager, when we were getting older, uh, Peter came to realize that uh, hanging around me was very safe because of the reputation I had as a very good person in a fight. Um, uh, when Peter was around me, no one could bully him, not not even our older brother David. So rather than a selfless brotherly love kind of situation, what we are looking at is a mutually beneficial parasitic uh, kind of a friendship, brotherly friendship relationship. But nonetheless, it was wonderful. Uh, he was a very good friend, a very good brother. The last time I spoke to Peter was 2006. Things happened after that that he decided to cut ties with everyone in the family, including me. Last I heard, he is married, he has two children, but he never told me about it. I think at this point it's turned into a case of pride that both of us are just too stubborn and too proud to pick up the phone. But no matter how things play out from here to the end, I will always remember that first time when Peter took a door in the face to get us out of that bathroom when he was 7 years old. And I will remember fondly all the great adventures we had as teenagers together.